Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakate Sadma Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakate Sadma Bando Mui Savadana Mate Bando Mui Savadana Mate Yahara Prasadevai Eva Vatori Jaya Krishna Prapti Oyaha Oite Krishna Prapti Oyaha Oite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Arna Koriyo Mane Asha Arna Koriyo Mane Asha Sri Guru Charane Rati Eishe Utamagati Sri Guru Charane Rati Eishe Utamagati Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Chaku Prabhu se. Chakudan dilo ye janme janme Prabhu se. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Prema Bhakti yaha hoite avidya vinasayate. Prema Bhakti yaha hoite avidya vinasayate. Gaya Rai Charito. Vede Gaya Rai Charito. Guru Karuna Kindu Alama Janara Bandhu. Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Lokaina Lokera Jivana. Lokaina Lokera Jivana. Aha Prabhu Koro Doyo de Omore Pada Chaya. Aha Prabhu Koro Doyo de Omore Pada Chaya. Meja Gusu Devana. Eveya Gusu Devana. Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Lokena Lokera Jivana. Lokena Lokana Jivana. Prabhu Koro Doya de Homore Pada Chaya. Aha Prabhu Koro Doya de Homore Pada Chaya. Eveya Gusu Devana. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunjavadi Pasyatya Desatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Go Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Go Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Haraya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Hari Haraya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana. Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita. Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Irupasi Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha Irupasi Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha Ijiva Gopala Vatala Raghunatha Ijiva Gopala Vatala Raghunatha Hare Namah Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Simadhusudana Giridhari Gopina Gadana Mohana Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Hiro Kirtanatan Bhatta Raghunatha Jiva Gopala Bhatta Raghunatha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Chama Sundara Radhe. Jai Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jai Krishna Balaram. Jai Gauranitai, Jai Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jai Gauranitai. Jai Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Jai Lakshmi Narasimha. Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Gaur Premanandi. Astotar Satashishi Madhavai Chanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Jakacharya Astotar Satashishi Mad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinas Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Mathur Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
So this is a lecture Prabhupada gave in 1968 in Los Angeles. Madhuvisa said, Prabhupada, when we're out on Sankirtan chanting, what would be the best way for us to engage the crowd to become participants in the chant with us? And Prabhupada said, the best way you go on chanting. Your business is not to, to say, satisfy the crowd. Your business is to satisfy Krishna, and then the crowd will automatically be satisfied. We are not going to please the crowd. We are going to give them something, Krishna. So you should be very much careful whether you are delivering Krishna in the right way. Then they'll be satisfied. Your only business should be to satisfy Krishna. Then everything will be satisfied. Tasmin tushte jagat tushta. If Krishna is satisfied, then whole world is satisfied. If you pour water on the root, then it is automatically distributed in every parts of the tree. So Krishna is the big tree, the root of the big tree, and you take to watering Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, and follow the rules and regulations, everything will be all right. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, Hare Krishna. So I see Radha Jivan Prabhu is back from his travels around the world. He's very instrumental in raising funds for the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium, which is a big, big, big project. You can read about it, in fact, in this month's Back to Godhead. Haribol. So if you want that issue Back to Godhead, it's in the gift shop, and you can also get a subscription in there. It's a very nice update on the TOVP and the progress that they're making. Okay, so we have Harinam today, where you can go out and give Krishna to others. 4:30 at University and 13th Street. Kalyapani, so you're starting a half hour early now, is that it? You said 4:30 this morning, Harinam. So you're starting not at 5, but at 4:30. Okay. I guess because it gets darker earlier or something. Saturday, tomorrow, UF, there's a home game, so we're going to be at Gate 7 at 10 a.m. Now, next week, we're coming into lots of things going on. Of course, there is the Festival of the Holy Name at the end of next week. So every evening next week, there's bhajans at someone's home in preparation for the Festival of the Holy Name. So we will let you know probably daily what's happening. Thursday is Thanksgiving. If you'd like to bring your family here to be thankful together, then you can be here at 1 o'clock. We could always use help. This is a community dinner. This isn't really a Krishna conscious festival. We just make it into one. So if you could give any help at all in the kitchen Wednesday and Thursday, please let me know, because otherwise the burden falls on the temple cooks, and it's too much, actually. So please help us. And I just want to remind you, Bibatsu Prabhu is in the hospital this week. He's at the VA hospital. If you want information, call the temple office. If you could visit him, he's welcoming visitors. I wanted to also mention that Divyanga's mom did pass away. Remember, he told us Monday he was on the way to see her. And Govinda Mohini told me this morning that she had been laying still, not opening her eyes and not responding to anyone speaking to her. and they could see that it was imminent, her passing. So they called Divyanga, he was en route, and they put him on the phone with her, and he, you know how he is, "Hey, Krishna Devi Dasi, how you doing?" And she opened her eyes for the only time that day and smiled, and then after that she passed away. So, she must have been already seeing Krishna somewhere behind her eyes. Anyway, so we want to give our blessings to her. I'm sure she was a very special person to have a special son like Divyanga Prabhu. And today is Dharmaraj's birthday, and I don't think he's here, but we can also give him our blessings. He's a wonderful devotee also. The chairperson of the Rath Yatra here in Florida. Okay, Nanda Prabhu is giving class today. Oh, wait, the devotees. Such an exceptional day on the altar today, so beautiful. Shri Shri Radha Sham Sundar Astasaki Prabhu, Chota Radha Sham Sundar Ananda Vardhani Prabhu, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Akuti Prabhu, Chota Krishna Balaram Manjari Sundari Prabhu, Shri Shri Gauritai Jai Gauri Prabhu, Chota Gauritai Leela Prabhu, and the Gurus and Lord Nishingadev, Chaita Guru Das. Nanda Prabhu's giving class. It's a roller coaster ride. Okay, Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijan Balaba Girivardhan Hari. Gopijan Balaba Girivardhan Hari. Sodanandana Vraja Jana Randana. Sodanandana Vraja Jana Randana. Jamuna Jira Vanachari. Jamuna Jira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Swayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribhajakacharya Astotar Sata Shri Shriman, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Srivas Adigor Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Today we're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 54, which is called Marriage of Krishna and Rukmini. In Krishna book, it's a different title. Did you know that? It's called Krishna Fights with the Princes. Anyway, this is titled here in the Bhagavatam, Marriage of Krishna and Rukmini. We're doing text 45 and 46. We can do 45 like we're supposed to. Deha ad... Oh, no, wait, sorry. I'm going to do that. Thank you, but thanks for the reminder. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can do this together, I'm sure you know it. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and also to Srila Prabhupada, the translator and commentator, by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna. Text 45. Deha adyantavam esha. Deha adyantavam esha. Dravya prana gunatmakaha. Dravya prana gunatmakaha. Atmanya vidyaya klipta. Atmanya vidyaya klipta. Samsarayati dehinam. Samsarayati dehinam. Deha adyantavan esha. Dravya prana gunatmakaha. Atmanya vidyaya klipta. Samsarayati dehinam. Please chant. Deha adyantavam esha. Esha. Atmanya Vidyaya Krita. Ladies? Davya Prana Gunatmaka. Atmanya Vidyaya Klipta. Deha, the material body. Adi, beginning. Anta, and end. Van, having. Esha, this. Dravya, of the physical elements. Prana, the senses. Guna, the primary modes of material nature. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. Atmaka, composed. Atmani, on the self. Avidyaya, by material ignorance. Klipta, imposed. Samsarayati, causes to experience the cycle of birth and death. Dehinam, an embodied being. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. This material body, which has a beginning and an end, is composed of the physical elements, the senses, and the modes of nature. The body, imposed on the self by material ignorance, causes one to experience the cycle of birth and death. Let's say that together. This material body, which has a beginning and an end, is composed of the physical elements, the senses and the modes of nature. The body, imposed on the self by material ignorance, causes one to experience the cycle of birth and death. And the purport is, the material body, composed of various material qualities, elements, and so on, attracts and repels the conditioned soul and thus entangles him in material existence. Because of our attraction and repulsion for our own body and other bodies, we establish temporary relationships, dedicate ourselves to great endeavors and sacrifices, concoct imaginary religions, make noble speeches, and thoroughly involve ourselves in material illusion. As Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. Beyond the somewhat absurd theater of material existence is the real and meaningful world of Krishna consciousness, the liberated life of pure souls devoted in loving service to the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. So we also have text 46. Can we chant that together? Natmano nyeya samyogo viyogascha sata sati tade tuvat tad prasidhir drig rupabhyam yatarave. The translation: O intelligent lady. So if you remember, this is Lord Balaram, and at this point he's speaking to Rukmini. O intelligent lady, the soul never undergoes contact with or separation from insubstantial material objects, because the soul is their very origin and illuminator. Thus the soul resembles the sun, which neither comes in contact with nor separates from the sense of sight and what is seen. So Lord Balaram is getting very philosophical here. So let's repeat this one also. O intelligent lady, The soul never undergoes contact with or separation from insubstantial material objects, because the soul is their very origin and illuminator. Thus the soul resembles the sun, which neither comes in contact with nor separates from the sense of sight and what is seen. So the purport here is a little longer. As explained in the previous text, the conditioned soul ignorantly assumes himself to be the material body, and thus rotates in the cycle of birth and death. In fact, matter and spirit are co-energies of the original source of everything, the Supreme Lord, who is the Absolute Truth. As Lord Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita 7:5, Jiva Bhuta Mahabaho Yayedam Daryate Jagat. The material world is sustained by the living being's desire to exploit it. Material world is like a prison. Criminals are determined to commit crimes, and thus the government finds it necessary to maintain a prison system. Similarly, the Supreme Lord maintains the material universes because the conditioned souls are determined to rebel against him and try to enjoy without his loving cooperation. Thus, here the phrase tad detuvat is used to describe the soul, meaning that the soul is the cause of matter assembling itself into a material body. The term tat prasidhe indicates that the soul is the cause of the body's being perceived. And the same term also indicates that this fact is well known to the enlightened. Besides its given meaning, the word atmana in this verse may indicate the Supreme Soul, in which case the term tad detuvat indicates that Lord Krishna expands his personal potency and thus manifests the material universe. Since the Lord exists eternally in his pure spiritual body, he never becomes material, as indicated here. Om Agina Timidandasya Jananjana Savakaya Chaksu Umilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vacharam Sangam Lagate Gurun Tatkripa Samaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Shri Chaitanya Ishvaram Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishvaram. Hare Krishna. So in context, what's happening here, Lord Balaram is speaking to Rukmini to remind her of the position of the pure spirit soul. In Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada, when he's describing this chapter, not necessarily right at this point, but in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada says the whole catastrophe, this whole catastrophe of the fight with Rukmi, of the defeat of Rukmi, has happened because of Rukmini's eldest brother, Rukmi's envious attitude towards Lord Krishna. And because of his envious attitude towards Krishna, he wouldn't allow Rukmini to be married to Lord Krishna. Rukmini's father, King Bhishmarka, he wanted Rukmini to be married to Krishna. Rukmini wanted to be married to Krishna. All the citizens in Vidarbha wanted Rukmini to marry Krishna. Everybody wanted Rukmini to marry Krishna except for Rukmi, who wanted him to be married to, as Prabhupada describes, someone whom he considered to be better. It's so funny, huh? But Srila Prabhupada puts everything so succinctly. That Rukmi considered, who was it? Shishupal Shishupal to be better. And therefore, he made that arrangement that she would be married to Shishupal, or tried to, excuse me. He tried to make that arrangement. But Rukmini, being the born in that family line, had that Kshatriya nature and wasn't going to stand for it, so she made her own independent arrangement by calling in the Brahmin and sending the message. So when the Krishna abducted Rukmini so easily, he just took her just so easily onto his chariot and went off, and at the time when all the other soldiers and princes gathered there were so bewildered by Rukmini's beauty that they just like fell off their horses. Krishna took her away, and as he was on his way to Dwarka, Rukmi had gathered some soldiers, a whole Aksohini division, and was planning to attack Krishna. So as he rushed up to Krishna, even not waiting for his whole military troop to get there, he rushed up to Krishna and he started to attack him in so many ways with so many arrows. And Krishna just easily, every single time he took a bow out and to put an arrow on the bow, Krishna just chink, cut the string, chink, chink 3 times, chink, just cut the string. So still foolish as he was, in fact, Prabhupada also calls him stupid. This stupidity of Rukmi was, he continued to try to exhibit his prowess and even spoke harsh words against Krishna. So when Balaram comes on the scene, as you well know, Krishna has already clipped rather in a funny way, has made him rather odd-looking. That's another way Prabhupada describes it. He made Rukmi rather odd-looking by clipping at his mustache and hair and beard in unusual patterns. So Balaram's now going back and forth between the parties, between Krishna and Rukmini, trying to get everything straightened out. So what in these last few verses, Lord Balaram's speaking particularly to Rukmini, because as Balaram has assessed, he said, your attitude, he previously said, your attitude is unfair. Rukmini's attitude of affection for her brother. Rukmini wanted Krishna as her husband, but at the same time, she didn't want it at the cost of her brother's life. And Prabhupada says there in Krishna book that she exhibited her attitude as a woman, or a weakness as a woman, that she wanted Krishna as her husband, but she didn't want it at the cost of her brother's life. So, so she prays to the Lord to spare him, and Balaram comes at that particular point and is telling Rukmini at a certain point now, he's telling her that your attitude is unfair because you're affectionate towards somebody who doesn't have your best wishes in mind. You're still maintaining your affection. So Balaram explains the position of the material of the soul coming into the material body and accepting a material body, or as is explained here, the soul is the cause of the body, because the soul is present within the body can be perceived. So because of that envious position of Rukmi, the whole thing has come to this point. So in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, the 9 Yogendras, they're speaking to Maharaj Nimi, and they're explaining what is that cause. What's the cause of fear for the living entity? That's explained in the 3rd chapter of the 11th canto. Bhayam dvititya bineshat syat ishad apektasya viparyoyo smriti tadmayato buddha abachetam bhaktyai kayesham gurudeva tatma. Fear, they're explaining that fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself with the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he forgets his constitutional position as servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency of illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master whom he should accept as his worshipful deity and his very life and soul. So just in that verse there, I think it was Kavi. Was it Kavi that spoke that verse? Anyway, he spoke that verse, one of the 9 Yogendras, and he's giving the information as to what's the cause of fear, and he's also giving information as to how to get released from that fear. So everything is right there in that verse, in a nutshell. So when the living entity turns away from the Supreme Lord, as we've heard many times, when he turns away from the Supreme Lord and thinks that I want to make my own endeavor to be happy, I can be happy independent of the Supreme Lord, then his whole conception of life becomes reversed. And instead of thinking in his original position that I'm the servant of the Lord, and in this way, by serving the Lord, then I'll automatically be satisfied and with unlimited happiness, actually, not even just satisfied. But when he forgets that, when he thinks in an erroneous way that he's going to be happy by making his own endeavor for happiness, this whole conception of life becomes reversed, and what happens is fear. Fear enters the living entity because he's no longer under the protection of the Supreme Lord. So he becomes fearful because he's also in contact with other people who also want to become happy. So there's a fight going on between how one person perceives happiness, how another person perceives happiness. And there's always fear there when the situation will change, what reverses might happen, what calamities might come to me, because my endeavor, although I'm trying so hard, my endeavor is always fraught by so many imperfections, and therefore I can't stay on this platform easily or for very long. So fear enters the heart and the consciousness of the living entity. The 9 Yogendras, as they continue to talk to Maharaj Nimi, they're also explaining that when one has come finally to this human form of life, when one has finally come to this human form of life, and explains Durlabho Manaso Deha, the human form of life is very rarely achieved throughout that cycle of 8,400,000 species of life. When we finally reach the pinnacle of the human form of life, such an opportunity is there to break through that cycle of fear, break through the cycle of samsara, is there only in the human form of life. It's so rarely achieved that one has to take advantage of it. And that's why I believe it was Kalyapani Prabhu's comment at the end of class, how unfortunate, more or less he said, how unfortunate was Rukmi's position, it appeared, because he was so close to the Supreme Lord, participating there in his pastimes, and yet in consciousness so far away. He was so close, yet so far away. So now, on the one hand, we also have heard often that the pastimes of the Supreme Lord and his associates, and even in Rukmi's position also, Obviously, to be there in the physically there in the pastimes of the Lord, that's not just an ordinary circumstance either. So Rukmi, even though I looked up in a few books, I couldn't find out who Rukmi really was, but anyway, he really is a servant of the Lord, and he's really absorbed at this particular point, he's really absorbed in his play acting as the enemy of the Lord. Just like in the story of Jai and Vijay. Jai and Vijay as the gatekeepers of the Lord when they were cursed by the Kumaras to take 3 births in the material world. They chose the 3 birth option because that, even though they had to act as enemies of the Lord, still much more quickly they would be able to be reinstated in their position of eternal servants of the Lord in the Vaikuntha planets. So if you analyze or think or those pastimes of Jai and Vijay's births, their births in the material world when they were Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they were totally absorbed in that mood. They weren't, it wasn't in the back of their mind at that particular time, I'm really a servant of the Lord and I really shouldn't act this way. They were totally absorbed in that mood so that they acted in an inimical way to the utmost degree so that Krishna, why? Because they initially understood that that's how to give Krishna pleasure. So they're under a type of illusion, and we're under a type of illusion. It's a different type of illusion. The Mahamaya potency that the conditioned souls in the material world are normally under, that material illusion, that's a little bit different than, it's not a little bit different, it's a lot different than the Yogamaya potency, wherein the associates of the Lord are considering themselves acting in this way or that way. So our endeavor is to shake off our material conceptions of life and come to the right position of understanding our position as eternal servants of the Lord. And that can only happen by the grace of the Lord also. Krishna speaks Bhagavat Dharma to enlighten the conditioned souls on their position. And I think it was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj who said that Bhagavat Dharma is so confidential that it has to be spoken by the Lord himself to reawaken the living entities' consciousness as of eternal servants of the Lord. So even Lord Brahma in the 3rd canto, it's 3rd canto, 9th chapter, in the prayers by creative energy, Lord Brahma is saying, when he's from his position as the creator, looking down at what he has created, the world and the facility for the souls to try to enjoy, because why, as explained in this purport here to the 11th canto, that there are living entities that are just determined. They're determined to rebel against the Supreme Lord, and therefore that whole material prison house is created. So Lord Brahma, when he's looking at the creation, he says in 9th chapter, 6th verse, "My Lord, the people of the world are embarrassed by material anxieties. They are always afraid. They always try to protect wealth, body, and friends. And they are filled with lamentation and unlawful desires and paraphernalia. And they avariciously base their undertakings on the perishable conception of what? I and mine. As long as they do not take shelter of your safe lotus feet, they are always full of such anxieties." So there's the clue there at the end of the verse. To take shelter of the safe lotus feet of the Lord, that's our method, That's our means to become free from the anxieties that are created by our own misidentification, our own false concept of who we really are, and the actions and interactions that our misconception of who we are creates in our life, all the entanglements that it creates. As the first purport was said, we establish temporary relationships, dedicate ourselves to great endeavors and sacrifice, concoct imaginary religions, and make noble speeches, all on the basis of illusion. And are completely, under that influence of the material energy, we're completely convinced that this temporary existence is reality. And only by hearing from the Supreme Lord and his representatives can that process of reawakening to our real identification, can that take place. Hare Krishna. Comments, corrections, or questions? Govinda Dasi. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. That was a really nice.
It is working.
It reminded me, by talking of fear, that when I was with Srila Prabhupada, Kartikeya, who was also taking care of him at that time, we had an extraordinary experience of fearlessness.
Uh-huh.
And what it is what we realized afterwards was that we're always fearing and we never noticed it. So right now, we're always fearful. It's underlying in our consciousness at all times. Even those of us who are sitting here in the room, there's little fears going on. There's a fearful. And one day, Srila Prabhupada started talking about the cowboys, the cowherd boys, playing leapfrog with Krishna, and how they were in the forest. And see, when he would talk, you would forget who you were, and you would be completely absorbed into his mood, that you, after he quit talking, you'd kind of wake up and go, wow, where was I? And I mean, it's hard to explain experience. It's like you were very conscious, but your consciousness was temporarily very altered by the presence of a pure devotee. So he talked about how the cowherd boys were playing leapfrog, jumping over one another and playing in the forest, and they had no fear. I think he even talks about this in Krishna book, doesn't he? There was no fear. They felt absolutely no fear because they were with Krishna. And for a few moments, we got a glimpse of fearlessness. Of course, I haven't had one since, but I just want to mention that this whole lecture about fearfulness we're not even aware of all the fears that are lurking in our subconscious.
Well, that's a really good point. Yeah, and as you said, because we're so absorbed in, and so it might come in the sense of there might be actually a physical fear, but there's always these questions of, am I accepted? Do they like me? Why is that person looking at me like that? They don't like, all of that. That's also fearing, and obviously bodily concept. So it's a good point that we're so used to it. That's normal, quote unquote. Yeah, don't notice until you get that experience of fearlessness.
Yes,
John.
That's what I wanted to
Thanks.
say, because it's always present. It's an underlying lurking current in our consciousness. Whether there's a difference between somebody coming at you with a knife and an obvious fear,
right?
But there's a set of fears that are
right,
and that's the only time I ever experienced total fearlessness.
Right.
It was because of his, and he was sharing it with us.
Right. Thank you. That's a very good point. Also, that reminds me of like Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers, when we'll get to the point where we'll chant Hare Krishna and we'll be able to, without, he doesn't say without fear, but without fear, roll on the ground in ecstasy and cover our body with dust. Because that also, even though we're experiencing some transcendental pleasure by chanting, we're also still not free from fear, and we're thinking, oh, well, I can't jump or scream too loud because everyone will look at me and whatever. But anyway, so he's saying free from all of those conceptions which cover our consciousness, then we can chant Hare Krishna in full ecstasy. Thank you. Pran Govinda Prabhu?
The lotus feet of Krishna. He says, Ashoka abhaya amrito adhara tumara charana dai tahate ekhono vishamalobiya charinu bhavera bhai. If you have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, then 4 things will happen. This is the checkpoint whether I have.
Can you find out where that phone is coming from? Is it an abandoned phone? Okay, thanks. Sorry. All right. Anyway, continue. Just a little bit louder, if you don't mind.
So, is it? So, what first thing will happen? The lamentation will go away. Ashoka, Abhaya, then you will become fearless. Why? Amrita, because you will be drinking the nectar of holy name, serving the Lord, 1 point. And then Adhara, you will find the complete shelter. It's so strong. But there is a story I remember, Shyam Sundar Prabhu mentioned early days in Bombay.
Oh, it's your phone.
So then what happened, he said one time, his devotee left from Prabhupada. I won't mention the name, but anyway, he didn't want to say. So he left and he went to some Ayurvedic doctor in South India and got trained a little bit, and then he comes back and he told Prabhupada in the morning walk, for all the devotees, they need some kind of mani mantra oshati. They say how to counter, few way you counter, either mani or mantra or osha or medicine. So Prabhupada, they should do this, they should study this, they should, and he's going on and on and on. So in the afternoon, Srila Prabhupada went in a car where they went for a preaching. And there was a little downhill, and the driver, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he said, Prabhupada, the brake doesn't work. And Prabhupada in the back, chanting, in India, the respective cities in the back. And he's chanting, and he says, so? And the devotee, he's on the other side of the driver. He says, so ask him, what should we do now? The brakes is not working. And he was like frightened. Said, so what is your philosophy now? How to protect now? And then the driver again told Prabhupada, I'm serious, the brake is not, I cannot control. It's just going out of control. Ask him again, Prabhupada said, ask him, what should we do now? So he could not. He just looked at Prabhupada and he's shaking. He said, therefore, take shelter of Hare Krishna Mahamani. It will never cheat you. You can have complete shelter from any fear. No, they didn't crash. But after a few minutes, thank you. After a few minutes, then they are chanting. After a few minutes, the brakes started working.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna breaks.
That was the mantra. Yeah.
Kalipani Prabhu, did you have something?
I just wanted to say, this verse you quoted, Bhayam Dvitiya Abhiniveshitasya, it's really good for understanding fear. It explains that as soon as the concept of duality is there, as soon as you don't see that everything is Krishna, and you enter the world of duality, then that is synonymous with fear. Duality means fear. And only when we know that everything is Krishna, then we have no fear.
Thanks.
But there's a fine point on that too. Sanatana Goswami, the verse is very sweet. Ideally, maybe you should give the number where everybody should remember.
This one, Bayam?
Yeah, Bayam.
It's 3, 237, 11th canto, chapter 2, text 37.
It said that Bhayam Ditya Abhinivesh. Abhinivesh means absorption. So Ditya, how the secondary world came? If there is no secondary world, it's only all Krishna's world. He said the self correction is required. I want to enjoy separately from Krishna, then the secondary world appears. So he's right, but the first is pointing to my own correction required. Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur was very happy on that.
Jai. Chirikam Prabhu? And then Madan, and then Narataka.
This knowledge brings us from all sides.
You just have to put your mouth really close to it. That's the way it works.
It is okay, yeah. But
Oh, there's no buts, sorry. Sorry, forget it. This knowledge saves us from fear, but,
yeah,
sorry,
they have some, like for example, a strong man.
a strong man?
A strong man. You see, he seems to be fearless.
He
Or you
seems,
see a lion or a tiger.
yes. So
This
the
seems
people
to
in the
have-
car also, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll be
So
quiet.
this seems to be free of fear. So where does this come from? I mean, is it how
It comes from illusion. It comes from illusion. And we have to actually really understand that, because just like in the example or the story that Pran Govinda told, someone might think, oh, this is what we need medicine, we need money, we need this. But then when death comes knocking at your door, your medicine, your money, or whatever, isn't going to save you, but Krishna will save you. So, but the power, and that's the thing, we're thinking that the power of illusion is just some little insignificant power, but it's greatly, it's so powerful, and it's so difficult to overcome, and at the same time, it's easy to overcome if one surrenders to the lotus feet of the Lord through the process of, the bona fide spiritual master. It's easy to overcome. In fact, that's what Krishna says, Maya Dakshena Prakritim, right? This material energy is very difficult to overcome, but if you surrender to me, then it's just like what? The amount of water that's in the hoof print of the calf. Very easy to cross over. Padam padam, the material world is there's danger at every step. So the strong man, whatever, the lion, they're proud, they're fearless under 90% of the circumstances, let's say. But there's still those circumstances that will cause fear, even in the strong man's heart. Madan Mohan Prabhu?
I was noticing that this is also in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada quotes almost, he was probably paraphrasing this verse, because in Bhagavad Gita 5:12 purport, Prabhupada said, in the Bhagavatam, the cause of anxiety over the result of an activity is explained as being one's functioning in the conception of duality, that is, without knowledge of the absolute truth. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in Krishna consciousness there is no duality. All that exists is a product of Krishna's energy, and Krishna is all good. Therefore, activities in Krishna consciousness are on the absolute platform. I'll just skip to the end of the purport where Prabhupada says, but one, this is a fascinating line, I always like this, but one who's entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot have peace. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness realization, is that there's no existence besides Krishna. It's a platform of peace and fearlessness. So I always like that. Peace and fearlessness.
Thanks.
Profit calculation. 5:12 purport. Oh, the English for the verse is the steadily devoted soul obtains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of labor, becomes entangled.
Jai. Thank you. Narataka? It's coming.
You were speaking how the living entity is always some element of fear is around. I was listening to a Prabhupada class this week, Prabhupada lecture, and instead of saying eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, Prabhupada said eating, sleeping, mating, and security. He said the living entity, for example, thinks, I have a solid bank balance.
Yeah.
My country has a good government. I am secure. But he doesn't understand that at any moment Yamaraj can come and take him.
Jai. Jai. So in that verse that Madan Mohan quoted, the key, what struck me was the steadily devoted soul. So that person who remains steady, they can attain unadulterated peace. So perhaps we might feel that we haven't got to that platform, but if we stay steady in our practices, if we stay steady in our practices of sadhana bhakti, hearing and chanting, just like Nagaraj Prabhu was mentioning yesterday, it's so important to read, it's so important to hear, and it's so important to chant, it's so important to do so many things. But if we stay steady in those practices, then that's the surefire way to become free from fear. And we can experience it. That's what 9th chapter, the Lord says, that it's shushukam kartam avyayam. We're directly experiencing, even to limited degrees, that the process is joyful and everlastingly performed. Hare Krishna. Pran Govinda wants the last word. No doubt he has a good word to say.
I thought about, I'm looking at Balaramji, he's a very unique character in a sense.
Yes.
That today he is giving a beautiful advice to Mother Rukmini so she doesn't have to feel emotional to her brother. And yesterday and day before yesterday he gave a speech to Krishna, how he is not properly behaving, killing relative, is not really good.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened when Rukmi's granddaughter married to Pradyumna's son? In that incident, nobody advised to Balaram. Balaram just finished him. What kind of...
That's his prerogative. He's the independent Supreme Lord, and he has that prerogative. He gave him the chance. He gave Rukmi so many chances to reform himself, and still he maintained his rebellious attitude. So, bonk.
But what about nobody teaching Balaram at that time?
Not needing. Lord Balaram is not needing to be taught. We are needing to be submissive to him, and that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. It's not boring. It's not boring. The Lord can act in any way that he wants, because it's the same argument, perhaps. It's a similar argument that one could say, why can Krishna, if he's here to explain dharma and religious principles, how is it that he can dance with others' wives? In reality, they're not others' wives. They're all living entities, male and female, are his parts and parcels. So similarly, Lord Balaram, when he decides that he's had enough of Rukmi and his ill speech, his bad behavior and his ill speech and so many things, that then he can purify him in that way. Because someone who's killed by the Lord never remains the same. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, he merely got touched on the head by the conch shell of Prishnigarbha when the Lord appeared before Dhruva Maharaj. And then, even though he was a 5-year-old boy and it was difficult previous for him he wanted to express his prayers to the Lord, he couldn't do it till he got very gently and lovingly touched on the head by the Lord's conch shell. So perhaps it externally looked like Rukmi was getting the sharp pointed edge of that club. Actually, I really liked that point that I think it was Ananda Tirtha Prabhu had made about the club, how the club was club was such a powerful weapon, because you don't have to use it in a certain way. Like an arrow is very specific. You have to shoot it exactly in the right way for it to hit the target. But a club, anywhere you can hit anywhere you get hit or use the club, you feel the pressure. It doesn't have to be only aimed in a certain way. So, so even though it might appear that Rukmi got the heavy end of Balaram's club, I'm sure he got supremely purified of all misconceptions of who Lord Balaram really was, and was able, perhaps because he didn't have anything to do with his body of Rukmi, was able to offer as the purified spirit soul very glorious prayers to the Supreme Lord. So that's my philosophical speculation on that point. Ha.
What's the difference between foolish and stupid? I was curious. You said that
Foolish and stupid?
Yeah.
Well, you're asking the right person. Sorry. What's the difference?
Yeah, you said Prabhupada added stupidity of it.
He did.
So I was curious. Why?
Why? Just a choice. I don't see that there's so much difference between foolish and stupid, but at this particular, well, Kalyapani, he's got a really good grasp of language, so he will explain. He will give us even the derivative if it comes from the Greek or the French, perhaps.
Oh, this one's Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
foolish can be innocent.
Yeah.
Stupid cannot.
Okay. Thank you. They're very nice. That's why the Association of Devotees is so nice. Govinda Dasi, one more thing, and then we'll end with you.
I have a question.
Oh. Well, there's lots of people here that will be able to answer it.
Everywhere I see these bumper stickers and signs that say no fear, I don't understand what that means. Maybe I'm too disconnected from the culture or something, whatever you want to call that culture is out there. But what does that mean? Why do they have these? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The fine print that you can't read, you know, because you have to be really close, means no fear if one surrenders to Krishna. That's the fine print.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.